Are you tired of spending your time and money chasing strategy after strategy only to discover what worked 10, 5, or even 2 years ago is not working now? Things shift fast in the online space, and if you're not keeping up, you're getting left behind. It's time for something different. Welcome to the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast, where every single episode will be jam-packed with proven, profitable strategies, behind-the-scenes secrets, and what's working now resources from industry experts and global influencers to help you scale your business, shorten your learning curve, and stand out in a crowded, noisy marketplace. And now, your host, award-winning marketing and media strategist, and international speaker, Patty Farmer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast. I'm looking forward to starting another amazing industry expert with you today. And I just love sharing these experts with you. And if you don't know it, I actually hand select, hand invite, and vet every single expert we have here on the show. It is that important to me to make sure that you are hearing what's happening now, getting the behind the scenes secrets, and really being able to stay up to date with what's trending and what's working now. So I'm really excited about our guest today. So let me tell you a little bit about her. So Dee Bowden founded BCS Solutions, a revenue recovery company from a personal desire to see small businesses make big money impact. Dee believes small businesses fall prey to revenue loss because of poor accounting strategies. That's why she's on a mission to help them grow their financial bottom line by sharing her 5-step program to revenue recovery. In fact, with over 10 years of financial experience, Dee has collected over $10 million for several companies and government agencies. And we are really, really blessed to have her on the show today. So Dee, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to your fabulous listeners around the world. Patty, thank you so much for this. And hey, Happy New Year.
And it is a new year. And with that, 2020 is a lot of things that people are talking about right now. People are talking about goals and what they want to do and what's their word or what's the resolution. Personally, for me, I'm not really into resolutions. For the past 15 years, I have chosen a word. And this year, a good friend of mine, Phil Gerbershak, who told me that for the past 10 years, because of a practice that Chris Brogan did, he chooses 3 words. So yesterday I decided, why do I have to choose only one? And I decided to choose 3. My 3 are intentional, momentum, and joy. Those are my 3. And I really liked being able to kind of broaden that a little bit. So I think that this is the time that people are really thinking about what's happening in their business. They're excited. The holidays are over, and they're really excited about the new year and what they want to focus on. But really, Dee, I really want to say that I think this is pretty evergreen, right? We should be working on our business all the time. Doesn't matter what month it is, doesn't matter what year it is. We really need to be working on our business all the time. So let's kind of start with that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and about your journey and how, you didn't just wake up one day and decide this is what you were going to do and this was your mission, right? I mean, something happened to get you here so that you're now doing exactly what your purpose and passion is in life. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Okay, I'd love to. Well, before I get into that, I wanted to respond to something you said. So you said you had 3 words for the new year?
Yep.
So what were your 3 words again? Because I'm going to add my 3 to your 3.
Intentional, momentum, and joy.
Okay, so my 3 are impact, influence, and income.
Oh, I love it.
Your impact, your influence, and your income. So I'm going to add my 3 to your 3, and now I'll be happy with my story. So,
awesome.
I'm Dee Bowden with BCS Solutions. I'm originally from Boston. I now live in Maryland. So some fun facts about me. I am a jazz lover. I love hot air balloons, and I love Ferris wheels. You're like, how does that tie with money? It doesn't, but it's fun. It's the fun facts about me. So it's jazz, hot air balloons, and Ferris wheels. Those are my absolute 3 favorite things. Oh, and of course, a good glass of wine. So we're gonna get the party started.
Hey, can't go wrong with a good glass of wine.
Definitely not. A good red or a good white, but preferably a red. So how did I get here? I actually got here a couple of different ways, but the main thing that got me here was I was a collector. So my background is I've been a contract administrator for almost 20 years. As a part of contract administration, I've been responsible for invoicing payments, collecting money, dealing with contracts, all things like that. And so the story of how I got here goes like this. About 14 years ago, I worked for a small IT firm outside of Boston, where I'm from. I was hired as a collector to help them recover. They had $8 million worth of sales on the books, but not in the bank, which means they sold software, licenses, laptops, you name it, anything in the IT space, that's what they sold. So they had $8 million worth of sales on their books, but definitely not in the bank. So they had a team of collectors. They brought me in as a part-time person. I worked Monday through Friday from 4, I think, till 8. And they said, "Hey, Dee, welcome aboard." I'm like, "Great, I'm excited. Here are your list of accounts, and this is how much money is outstanding, and we need you to figure out how to get this done." So after I had a quick, short prayer, I was like, okay. So my first question was, how did this happen? How do you sell this much money? How do you sell this much in product or services and not know that you don't have this money in the bank? I don't know what happened, but I do know that with a short prayer and some hard work, I was able to recover $6 million in 60 days working part-time. True story. After that, the CEO gathers all of us downstairs and says, "Listen, I want to have this chat." And I've kind of learned that chat is a code word for we kind of need to talk. If you have any kind of relationship, when somebody says, "We need to have a talk," that's kind of a sign of there's some things that are not working right and we need to fix it. So he gathers all of us downstairs and says, "Listen, I want to thank everybody for your hard work, for everything we've done, but we've made an executive decision and we're closing the company, and you've got 30 minutes to vacate the building and to get your stuff." And the company was called Amherst Technologies. They were out of Merrimack, New Hampshire, like I said, outside of Boston, where I'm from. So after I pick myself up off the floor, myself and everybody, we gather our stuff and leave the building. And this happens 2 months before Christmas. So this is October 24th, 5th, somewhere around there, 2005 or 6. I'm like, what in the LL Cool J just happened here? Because I am just like, how does this happen? So after that, I began a journey of one, asking, what are the disconnects? Disconnects in my space means, what are the issues? What happened? I have always wondered from that day to this, how do you sell that much and not collect it? Like, what happened between the sales department and the collections department that they never talk to each other? Because I'm thinking the sale is not complete until the money is in the bank, meaning the salesperson did a great presentation and sold the product or sold the service. Company bought it. Okay, they have a contract for 10 laptops. They bill for it. But they, meaning the salespeople and the collection people, never talked and never said, "Hey, we have all this money that's on the books," meaning the sales have been recorded, but the money isn't in the bank. And how come we're not collecting this? Now, I worked part-time, but I know that there are situations like this that happen over and over and over again, and that the divisions work in silos, meaning sales does sales, contracts does contracts, invoicing does invoicing, receivables do receivables. Nobody talks. So my whole thing has been, how do you change the dynamic of this, or change the perception that, sales is sales and collections is collections, but you two need each other. You can't have a sale be complete until the money is actually in the bank. And if you don't do that, you're going to end up like this company here. And so my passion has been to not have another small business go out of business because they're not paying attention to the things that are so important. There are 4 things, which are sales, the contract or the agreement, your invoicing, and your payments. Those are the 4 things that matter in every business. I don't care what you sell, what you do. Obviously, you're in business to make money, but you have to have those 4 things as a part of what you do and why you do it. And for that company, what happened was, even though I recovered that much money myself and my team did well, clearly there were some disconnects that happened that broke down the business, and they made the executive decision to close it. My plan or hope is that as I tell the story, companies will not do this, and they will at least take a look at what's going on in their sales and in their receivables and go, oh, before we end up 30 days, 60 days, 90 days past due, we're going to change this and hopefully collect our money.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that nowadays, business owners and entrepreneurs, they're wearing so many hats, right? And I even noticed early on in my business that when I stopped doing that very quickly and decided that I just wanted to work in my brilliance and hire other people to work in theirs, a couple of things happen, and I kind of want to see how this relates to what you're saying. One of the things I noticed that happened was that when they made the decision, whether it is because they weren't good at that task or they didn't like to do that task, right? And they outsource it, one of the things that happens though is you still have to understand how it works. Because if you don't understand how it works, you just hand it off to somebody else, that can actually hurt you without really knowing. And that has actually happened to me myself too early on. The second thing is when you decide that you're going to build a team and you're outsourcing things, one of the things that's really important, like what you were saying, people weren't talking to each other, is that a lot of time if you don't create the right culture, what will happen is everybody just wants to throw each other under the bus, and that's why things don't get done, because it's never their fault. It's, oh, I didn't get this done because this person didn't do this, and they didn't do this, they didn't do that. And then you spend a lot of your time, I like to say, babysitting to try to figure it out. Now, I have to tell you, Dee, I am so solution-oriented that I tell all my team, it isn't even if you drop the ball, it's when you drop the ball. We're all human. But what I want and what I'm looking for in my team really is that by the time I hear about it, we already have option A, B, and C to know and say, oh, this is what happened. Here's where we are. And to really let them know that they're never going to lose their job for that. I just really want to focus on what are we going to do now to pick up the ball and find a solution versus blaming somebody else for it. So I really find that when you're talking about that, sometimes some of these things are things that really happen. So those are the things that I see from where I am sitting. What are some of the mistakes or myths, whichever word is applicable here for you, that you see that stop people from really seeing what they're doing? Like, how are they missing that? Because, I mean, you know, it's kind of like, you know, you have to measure and track and do all these things. And so, you know, a lot of times when people hire me, being in the marketing world, you know, part of what I do is look at the, you know, the holes they have right there in their money bucket, right? And where are they just, you know, money is just going out these holes and they're just raining money and not in the right way, right? And really, how can we stop up some of those gaps? So I always like to say that I like fill those holes with money for you. But with that said, I see people do that all the time and they don't even realize it, which is really kind of unfortunate. So what are some of the mistakes that you think that people do that make it so they don't even see what's right in front of them because they just don't know?
Right.
I don't think they choose to do it. They just don't know.
That's a great question. I think it's some of the following. Number one, no one has gathered the team together and kind of laid out what's the vision. So for example, in the story that I shared, I don't recall us having a meeting with, let's say, the CFO to say, listen, here's the state of all of our accounts. We've got accounts over 30 days, over 60 days, over 90 days past due. And if we don't come together and figure out how to fix this, we're going to have a bigger problem. I think that's one. I think number two, I think that now I'm coming probably from a corporate and bigger background, but it still is the same. I think that most companies, small or large, don't explain how the cycle works. That it isn't just that you just go get the sale and that you're done with your piece and that you bring me the sale, you drop it off at me and you're done. They don't understand the bigger picture. What usually happens is you're told, okay, you do this and excel at this. And you never understand that your piece is a part of a bigger plan, a bigger puzzle.
What if you're an entrepreneur?
Even if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a solopreneur, it doesn't matter. If you're the person that's running everything, you have to know that there are 4 things to me that are important. You have to understand that sales are important. You got to understand that you have a contract or agreement. You definitely have to understand invoicing, and you have to understand payments. And if you don't understand, or that's not your strength, then it's important to figure out, okay, who can I talk to that can help me with this? It can't be that you're doing all of it and you're not at least acknowledging that you need help. That's another thing. Third, I think that people are told that being an entrepreneur or being in business is really simple. You just got to get the sale and that's it. And no one explains that there's sales and that there's marketing and that there's advertising and that there are so many pieces to it and that it's a complete circle. It isn't just 1 or 2 things. But in my lane, where the money comes in, is that the perception is that once you make the sale, it's automatically assumed that the money's there, and that's not true. Because first of all, even if you make the sale, you still have to deliver the product or the service. And you have to make sure in terms of customer relationships that did you provide a good product or service, and is the customer happy? Because if there's any challenge or any problem, they're not going to pay you. And that's the piece right there. Am I right? That's the
It
piece.
is, because I think that what people realize is they're so focused on acquiring clients. Yes. Well, it's one of the most important parts, of course. But what I like to tell people all the time is in this customer experience that we're having, the journey that the customer's having, it costs so much more to have to acquire a new client than to retain the clients you have, right? And so I think big picture is retention is so important, right? And I see it now. People focus so much more, thankfully, on the journey. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to share this little story. I have to tell you, it just fits perfectly here. So I was at an event once, and at this event, they had Roger Hamilton, I believe is his name, from Wealth Dynamics. I don't know if you've ever heard of Wealth Dynamics. And it is a company that similar to some of the, DISC, Strength Finders, and some of those ones. It's a little bit different though. And before we came to the event, they had us take this little assessment. And we took the assessment, and I was a creator. No surprise there. But here what was interesting. At this part, I'm going to tell you, Dee, this was a game changer for me. Huge game changer in my business. And what happened was he said he had all of the 4 different ones, had us get in a, you go over here, you go over here, you go over here. He said, I'm going to give you an example of a story. And then he said, we're going to have a question. You're each going to have like 5 minutes. And he had everybody pick somebody that was going to be their spokesperson for the group. And no surprise here, I was also the spokesperson for my group. So anyway, here was the question. It's so funny. The question was, the exercise, he said, was that you get a phone call from one of your customers and they tell you that they want to talk to you the next day and that they're thinking about leaving. Mm-hmm. And you have 24 hours, right? And here was the kicker. And that client made up over 50% of your income. Mm-hmm. What would you do with the 24 hours? That was the question. So when he looked at us, we were first. He handed it to us first. And I was thinking, obviously there was a lot of things. But for me, my question first was, well, who'd be dumb enough to let one person would be more than 50% of their income? Like who would do that, right? So that was I was like, well, that was silly. And so I turned to my group and we were all like, well, the first thing we do is replace that income, right? Hopefully when we talk to the guy tomorrow, but for today, we only have 24 hours. We could lose 50% of our income, boom, just like that in 24 hours. And I thought there could be no other important answer. That was the most important answer. So when the 5 minutes was over, he came to us first and he said, well, what would you do with the 24 hours? And we told him, he's like, oh, that's one way to think of it. And I'm thinking, really? Like in my brain, I was like, is there any other way to think it? But then he goes to the next group. And the next group said, oh, we'd spend that 24 hours thinking of scenarios so that when we met him the next day, we would be able to solve his problem and he wouldn't leave. And I was thinking, well, that's important too. But if you don't, he's still leaving and 50% of your income's going. The next group said, well, we would devise and create a new policy to put in our policy and procedure book so this would never happen again. Well, of course we were going to do that too, but not in the first 24 hours, I was thinking. And then I can't even remember what the last one was. But I was so mind-boggled by that there were groups of people who were so sure that was the answer. And here was my takeaway, and I know you're going to love it, was that what happens is that when we're hiring, we hire people who think just like us. Mm-hmm. And the reality really is that you really need on your team one of every one of those, right? One of every one of those. So yeah, while this part of your team is replacing that income, this part of your team is thinking of solutions to offer him so he doesn't leave. And this part is thinking, oh man, we need to create a policy and procedure and all that. All of them were important, right? But I was mind boggled because I knew that we were going to do those things, but it wasn't the thing that I felt we should have done in the 24 hours. It was a game changer in how I looked at my business, and it was a really game changer in how I hired for my company. So what I'm hearing from you as you're talking about these different things that you're saying is each person on that in that touch point of the journey that you're talking about in these key areas, not everybody thinks in that way. And so how important it is to be able to hire accordingly, to be able to be really clear on that journey. And if you are a solopreneur or somebody who's wearing all those hats, like you have to understand each part of that journey yourself, because dropping the ball in one of those could affect your bottom line. Absolutely. And that's why they would need somebody like you to help them recover it.
Exactly. You couldn't have said that any better. And thanks for saying it, because that's exactly right. And I think also as business owners and as solopreneurs and dualpreneurs and all of that, I think most people don't have this conversation because, you think about it. There's the hype of, go start jump out here and start a business. It's like, no, how about before you jump out here and start this business, you get some education, you get some training, take a class, go through a program. If you need to go back to school, you need to go back and get a master's degree in business or take some certifications, whatever you need to do. But the thing is, I think people are just told is basically jump out here and just jump, just do the business. And you're wondering why so many companies are out here failing is because they're, number one, they're not having the conversation you and I are having, number one. Number two, they're not understanding that it's more than just jumping out here, that actually business is actually strategy. And in the four I talk about are sales, contracts, billing, and receivables. There's more to it, but those are my four because that's my lane. But the point is that people are jumping out here and then they don't know some of the basics. Like, for example, I have talked to I don't know how many people recently, and they're like, well, how do I structure my business? I'm like, do you have an EIN number, employer identification number? Even if you're by yourself, you still need one. Do you have a DUNS number? What are your articles of organization? Are you a solopreneur, which I would not recommend, or at least become an LLC so that you can keep your personal assets and your business assets separate? Like, I need that? Yes.
So that's what I call foundational work. Sometimes they don't have basics or the foundation work. So which kind of leads me into a really important question, which would be, what would be some of the very first things, best advice that you would give to somebody who is a brand new entrepreneur business owners?
First advice, first steps, number one, just what the things we just talked about. Number one, off the bat, do you have a checklist that has your employer identification number? Number one. Number two, do you have your articles of organization? Are you at least set up as an LLC? Number three, do you have a business checking account? Do you have one? Seriously, because you'd be surprised how many people commingle their funds. And it's like, I know, right? It's like, it almost gives you the shakes just thinking about it. But these are the things, like the checklist is your EIN number, your articles of organization, your being an LLC at a minimum, your business bank account, number three. Number four, if you don't have business insurance, you need to get yourself some, get your business some so you're protected, for like errors in the mission, mistakes you make that you don't even know you made. But if you have insurance, you're covered. Number five, let's see, if depending upon where you are in the States or in the world, does your industry require a license? Find out if you have to have a license to do what you do. Like, if, for example, if you're a barber, hairstylist, manicurist, whatever you do, you need a license in order to do business in your state. 6, get yourself an accountant. Get yourself a small business accountant that can help you kind of structure the information that you need to make sure that you're tracking things right. And if you're going to be doing contracts, in-depth contracts, I would definitely look for an attorney that specializes in small business contracts that can help you draw up your agreement so that you protect yourself and obviously offer good service to your customer, but you are operating legally. Those would be my top things.
Oh, those are really good ones too. I think a lot of times when we decide whether we're transitioning out of corporate to entrepreneurship or whether we're opening up, a brick and mortar, whatever the case may be, I think sometimes we have a tendency to stand in our own way, right? Sometimes the roadblock or the obstacle is us, right? What would you say is the biggest obstacle, blind spot, or roadblock that you had to overcome?
Oh, that's easy. For me, I am brilliant and I'm gifted in recovering money, but I struggled and still struggle from time to time with the whole sales process because I know how to get money. That if you came to me and said, D, I have this account, with another company or with a government agency, and I need you to go in and get it, I got you all day. That's the problem. I know the questions to ask you, I know what to get. But to be able to sell the service that I provide, I had to get comfortable with actually speaking about it, and not in this is what I do, but the more to show the value that I bring, where have I been successful in doing this, and basically public speaking. Because you never think about that you'd have to become a speaker in your business.
Even if you're not a public speaker, a professional speaker,
Mhm.
speaking is a form of communication.
Absolutely.
And the better you are at it, the better your sales are going to be. Because the better you can get at using your voice and your messaging clearly
Mhm.
to the value that you deliver and the results they can expect to get. Because here's the thing, a lot of times I see this all the time. People want to be talking about, I'm a this, and this, and I do this, and this.
Mhm.
That's great. And while I will agree that when people are deciding who to hire, they do look at that a little bit, right? They want to make sure that you have the credibility if they're going to write a check. However, I think people care so much more about what is the result I can expect to get if I hire you than hearing about all the things you did, right? So there is a little bit of that for social proof and credibility, but the reality is people really care about what's the results they're going to get. But when people are doing sales, they want to spend a whole lot of time talking about, I did this and that, and I'm doing this and that. I don't think people really care about that. I really do. And I think a lot of times people focus a little bit too much on them and not enough on their potential clients. So I think that is really important. So I want to kind of go back and focus a little bit on what you're saying about recovery.
Okay.
So I want to really be able to, I'm talking here to my audience, right? This is the Marketing, Media, and Money show, right?
Absolutely.
And so one of the things I think of when I hear recovery, right, would be, so I want to make sure that I'm clear, and I want to make sure it's clear for them too. So say somebody had a potential client, they're their ideal client, they really want to work with them, but sometimes it really is about money, right? Sometimes it's an investment, and the best ROI you're going to get is when you invest in yourself. But maybe they don't really quite have that in their business yet, right? We just talked about all these things they should be investing in when they do it, and maybe they don't always have money to invest in a coach, which I think is very important, and one you left off your list too, by the way. I'm going to add that to your list, is to hire a business coach.
Yes.
But anyway, one of the things is, so from a recovery point of view, so if somebody said, you know what, I would love to hire you, and I absolutely would, I just don't have the funds. Are you someone from a recovery point of view that if we sent them to you, could you possibly help them to recover and come up with that money that they needed? So a lot of times we have a lot more money. So I don't know if you know this about me, but I come from a mortgage background.
Okay.
So I was in banking. I actually was in collections too. It was one of my very first jobs I had. And so I've collected millions of dollars for the credit card companies that I've worked for. And so I know that a lot of times people will say to me and said to me then, oh, I don't have the money for a down payment, or I don't have the money for this. Oh, I don't have the money to pay off this or whatever. And always it's like, well, are you open to having a conversation about it? And I could always find the money for them, because people don't really always realize, not only do they not realize their debt, they don't always even realize where they actually really do have assets as well.
Mhm.
Right? And so are you someone that in this, that you also can help them do that, to find the assets that they may have so that they can find the money that they need to invest in the right things for their business?
Sure. And I would say yes, with this caveat. If we're talking about a small business or a business in general, the first thing, because my lane is collections, the first thing I'm going to look at is, what are the accounts that are outstanding right now that are, let's say they're currently 0 to 30. First thing I'll be looking at is, okay, what have you done to try to recover that money? That's the first thing I'm looking at, is because if you have money that's owed to you from services or products that are already provided to you, I'd be looking at how fast can we get that money in, so that once you collect that money, then you'd be looking at putting that money to use to do the other things you just talked about. That's what I'd be looking at. Now, in your conversation, you mentioned that, being in the mortgage industry and also being a collector for the credit cards. That's more on the consumer side. That's not really my lane. My lane is more the business to government. But like I said, if you were a small company and you came to me and said, Dee, I've got $10,000 worth of outstanding receivables, my first thought is, what have you done? What are the steps you've taken to recover that money? Well, let's get a plan together so we can get that money into your business so that you can reuse it to do something else, meaning go get training, go hire a business coach, whatever the problem needs to be resolved. But you obviously can't resolve the problem until you have the money. Because my thing is, why are you still owed this, especially if it's 0 to 30, 30 to 60? How come you haven't already been on the phone? How come you haven't already followed up? How come you haven't already checked in with your customer to say, what are the disconnects? Is there anything that I missed in the process for you not to process my invoice. For example, old school data entry errors still happen. They still happen. I don't care who you are in the world. You sit there, you're keying in information, it happens. The wrong account number, you know this, the wrong contract number, the wrong date, the wrong whatever. Sometimes the errors are so simple. I believe this. I have found in doing this for many years, a lot of people hate's a strong word, dislike getting into the weeds. I specialize in the weeds. I'm the why behind the what. So if you've got money.
Ooh, the why behind the what?
I'm the why behind the what, because from a 10,000 foot level, I'm looking at, you've got all these buckets, 0 to 30, 31 to 60, 61 to 90, 90 and above. So I'm looking at all these buckets, and that's money that's owed across all these buckets. How come you have invoices that are owed 90 days past due? What happened? 60 days, 30 days. Okay, that's one. Number two, where's your phone call? And I'm not necessarily talking about dialing for dollars, but I am talking about getting on the phone and talking to the accounts payable department of the company or your customer that you're working with and asking, hey, simple thing. Hi, I'm Dee with BCS Solutions. I'm calling about, can I speak to the person who in accounts payable, please?
Yeah, this is what I used to do for a living. I remember It's all about, how can you make it not go further than that? And is there a program or a way you can help them? But I got to tell you, Dee, I hear people more than I would like that would say, I would like to do this. I'm waiting for some of my invoices to come in. And I hear my clients tell me that they're hearing that, right? And I'm like, okay. So as soon as I hear that, in my mind, there's already something a little bit out of whack, right? And so I'm already wanting to say, okay, let's kind of really talk about that, because the last thing in the world I want is for my life and my lifestyle to be revolved around worrying around when my invoices are getting paid, right? And there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. A lot of it is just, like you said, knowing where your money is. I think that is really, really important. And I have to tell you, it's almost kind of a joke in my family, because I have this mortgage background. I deal with money all the time. It's the number one thing I help people do is monetize their business, but I hate math. And so my husband, I even have a plaque that says, I'm too pretty to do math. Like literally, there's software for all that. There's all that stuff, whatever. But the reality really is those conversations, a lot of times people don't want to have those conversations. And I have to tell you, I used to come home to my husband and, I'm an idea generator, right? And I'd say, oh, I have this great idea. And, oh, honey, this is going to be so great. And this is what I'm going to do. And my husband would always say the same thing. He'd always say, how is that going to make you money? I mean, my husband's an engineer. So he would say, how is that going to make you money? And I really hated hearing that too. You just got to know. So after a few times, I thought, I'm not a dumb. So I started being able to answer the question, so that when he'd say, how are you going to make this going to make you money? I'd be able to say, oh, well, here's how it's going to make me money, blah, 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 blah. And I would lay it out for him. And I remember the very first time I did it, I was so excited. I couldn't wait for him to get home so he could ask me that question so I could tell him. And then he was super quiet. And I was like, what? And he said, you have a decimal in the wrong place. And it just was like, what? And hey, believe me, it's like what you said, decimal in the wrong place changes everything. So that's what I tell people all the time. Like, hey, sometimes having a decimal in the wrong place can change everything. For me, I really like helping people to move the comma, right. and stuff though. But the reality really is it can happen. If this is not your area of expertise or where you want to be, there's people like you that they can hire to come in and do that. So I think that is just really great. So Dee, what do you love the most about your business today? Where you are right now with what you're doing, what do you love the most about your business?
Before I answer that, I want to come back to something that you said, because it was something about the payments, the people that are waiting for payments. They can't make the payments because they're waiting for payments. Depending upon the industry that you're in, especially if you do prime, you probably know this as prime contractors and subcontractors, that statement does happen for them, that the primes can't pay the subs until the primes get paid. So that piece is true. It does happen more often than we think, but I still think that you still have to address or plan for that. If you're a subcontractor and you're waiting for your prime, you still have to have other ways to continue your business while you're waiting for that payment to come through. I just wanted to add that before you go. So your question was, what do I love about my business now?
Today, what do you love about your business?
Well, you know what I love about my business? I love the fact that I have decided to take this message of how secure is your cash flow, AKA collect the cash, and share it on platforms like this. I love the fact that when you asked a question earlier about what was I not good at, I wasn't good at telling my story. And I wasn't good at the time, being confident that this story and the results that I have done and can do would find a home with listeners, with business owners, with lots of people who are like, really? No, because and growing in confidence, and I say this because there may be somebody who's listening who's like, well, I'm just getting started and I don't feel really confident in this, or they might be a little further along and they're still not feeling confident. Well, I want to tell you, even though I have been doing this work for many years and recently, got some media attention and some nice accolades and all that, it took me a minute to grow into being comfortable with being Dee Bowden, founder of BCS Solutions, and that I love talking about collections and I love talking about how secure is your cash flow. And I love talking about the fact that, the sale is not complete until the money is in the bank, and the fact that most people, I know this for sure, would rather have a root canal than talk about asking anybody to pay them money, because money is such a taboo, uncomfortable conversation. But here's the thing. Every day that we get up in the world, what are we chasing? Money. That's what we do. In one way or another, we're chasing $1 or more. But the point is, we're chasing it through being in business, selling a service, selling a product, or going to work for somebody. But what are we after? We're after the money, but we don't like to have the conversation about the money, because then it's like, well, why are you talking about money? Well, we talk about money because money is energy. Money is a force. Money is what we need to be able to do what we want to do. If you have...
Which is what makes us happy and brings us joy.
Absolutely.
I love that. So, Dee, how can people connect with you?
Well, so you can connect with me on Facebook. I'm Dee Bowden on Facebook. Instagram, it's Bowden D, so it's my name reversed. So it's Bowden D. LinkedIn, it's also LinkedIn/Dee Bowden. And then my website is www.bcsconsultinggrp.com. That's www.bcsconsultinggrp.com.
Perfect. And these will all be in the show notes as well. And thank you so much for bringing gifts for my audience when you come to. So tell us a little bit about the gift you have for the audience.
Oh, for your amazing audience today, I have this fabulous gift. It's called Collect the Cash. It's a free ebook, and it's 5 ways to secure your cash flow. And basically what it talks about is, it's my philosophy on how do you recover your money? How do you collect your money? Why is it so important that you get paid for your product or your services? And so it's called Collect the Cash. It's a free ebook that you can download off the site.
Perfect. So Dee, now we come to the part of the show that I like to call Open Mic. It's kind of my version of social karaoke. And what I want to be able to do is, could you please share with everyone, I'm going to pass the mic over to you, and I would really love it if you would share with the audience what your best marketing, media, or money strategy would be.
Well, I've never done social karaoke. This is kind of cool. I like it. But I love it. I love it. Social karaoke. So my best money strategy is this. I firmly believe the following. The sale is not complete until the money is in the bank. I'll say it again. The sale is not complete until the money is in the bank. Here's why. No matter what you do in business, you're doing one thing first, which is you're looking for a sale. You're looking for a sale of a product or a service. Now, the best way people can understand this is this. One of my best examples is a cell phone. Everybody who's listening to this around the world has a cell phone. And when I say the sale is not complete until the money's in the bank, here's how. You go into whatever carrier you do business with. They present you with the newest phone, iPhone 11, Samsung 10, whatever the brand is. They sell you, if you have a phone, first thing they're going to do is they're going to check to see, all right, hey, are you eligible for an upgrade? Yep. Next, so first thing happens, sale. If you say yes to the new phone, guess what? You enter into a new contract. The things I was talking about earlier. So you end up enter into a new contract. 3, they're going to go into your account and they're going to talk to you about, okay, you were billed, you used to be billed, your previous phone cost this much, now your new phone costs this much. And then you're going to set up your new invoice plan for what you're going to get billed. And then fourth, you're going to get your bill, then you're going to pay it. But after all of that happens, you don't leave the store with the phone until the sale is complete and the money's in the bank, i.e. they swipe your credit card, you wait for that thing that says transaction approved, then they tell you, they print out the receipt and you go on your merry way with your phone. But the sale is not complete until the money's in the bank, because you're not leaving the store with the phone until they can confirm, and you basically check your receipt. There's a code. It says transaction approved, and it's code, whatever it is. And that confirms that the money was taken from your account and put into theirs. Same thing in business. Your sale is not complete until the money's in the bank, until you make sure that basically when you do your sales presentation and your potential customer says yes, then you sign your contract, then you provide your product or service, you bill them, then they pay you. All of those things happen, and that's what the goal is. The sale is complete and when the money's in the bank. And to the part of the story I mentioned earlier, I said that I also shared that former company I worked for did this. They did it with $8 million worth of sales of IT services on the books, but not in the bank. So their accounts were sitting there with all this money not collected. They thought they had all this money and they didn't. And so my whole mission strategy around sharing my message is, don't forget, the sale is not complete until the money's in the bank. And most people who have a cell phone, they can understand my message, because
I think it's a pretty simple concept. So I love it. I think it's a concept that they understand. They don't always practice, but they get it, right? It's one of those things that's a lot easier to understand it. And you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of makes sense. Yes, that's absolutely true. But then they have all these roadblocks in the way and they don't always do it. So thank you so much, Dee, for spending this time with me today. I really appreciate it. You were so generous with your zone of genius and your brilliance.
Thank you.
And we really, really appreciate it. To the audience, thank you for listening in today for this episode of Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. And if you want to get up close and personal with some of our guests and some of the guests for our sister magazine, Marketing, Media, Money, please join us on Facebook in the Marketing, Media, and Money Magazine Podcast and Event Facebook group. We would love to have a conversation there as well. So thank you all for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode. And until then, make it a great day.
Thank you for joining us today on the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast. To shorten your learning curve even more, make sure to grab your free copy of the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine at www.marketingmediamoney.com. I promise your business will thank you.